Welcome to Backstage Pass with Gail Davis, your invitation into the world of keynote speaking and event planning expertise. Join us as we pull back the curtain and dive into exclusive interviews with speaking industry experts. From seasoned speakers to master event planners, we're here to provide you with the ultimate backstage experience. Get ready to unlock valuable insights, tips, and strategies that will elevate your events and leave your audience inspired. Hello, my name is Gail Davis, and I am your host of Backstage Pass. I am so thrilled to have our guest today, Jamie Metzl. I ironically met Jamie on board a Crystal cruise ship about 10 years ago. And at that time, Crystal was really known for having one of the highest caliber distinguished lecture series on the seas. So anytime I cruised with my family, I always made it a point to go and listen to the guest lectures. And not only did I attend one of Jamie's presentations, I attended every time he presented on his 16-day cruise. And immediately, Jamie started working with GDA speakers. And even though I've known Jamie for a decade, it's really hard for me to say what he does in a quick sentence or even a quick elevator pitch, because he's one of the few experts that is connecting AI, genetics, biotechnology, healthcare, and geopolitics into one larger picture about where humanity is headed. He has served on the U.S. National Security Council. He's advised the World Health Organization on the human genome editing, and he has been called one of the leading voices in the future of technology and humanity. Recently, Jamie gave a keynote on AI and the future of healthcare at the Aspen Ideas Health Conference, and he was the only speaker that was invited to give a single-person keynote at the conference versus a panel, and the response was extremely, overwhelmingly positive. His message matters because we all know that AI is changing how we work, but it's reshaping healthcare, business, government, and the way we think about what it means to be human. So we have a ton of stuff to dive into today, and Jamie, I'm just thrilled to have you here.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here with you, Gail. It's been wonderful knowing you and working with you for 10 years. And after 10 years, I'm honored to call you my friend.
I love that. I love that. Well, I think I want to get started with the one thing that really stands out to me about your work. And as I said in the intro, you don't just focus on one aspect of technology, but you're trying to connect all these major topics into a bigger story. And what I'd like for you to elaborate on a little bit is about, when did you realize these revolutions weren't happening independently, but they're actually accelerating one another?
Well, since I was a little kid, I was one of these annoying kids who kept asking why. And pretty young, I realized that when you keep asking why, your whys start bumping into each other because the answers are all connected to other things. And so when I was looking for decades ago, when I started really diving deep into all of these technological revolutions, it doesn't take long to realize that every technological revolution is embedded in every other one. And so you have to have the agricultural revolution, to have the civilizational revolution, to have the writing codes that now underpin our computing codes, that empower our AI revolution. And now with the tools of AI, we're able to interrogate living systems like how a plant diffuses nutrients through a leaf, and then use those models to build faster computer chips that give us stronger AI to make more discoveries. And so all of these pieces are connected to each other. One of my recent books is called Superconvergence, and that's really what it's saying. And because these technologies weave into each other, just like if you go on a hike in nature, you don't say, oh, there's the physics, there's the chemistry, there's the biology. There's just one thing that's nature. And there's just one thing that's technological and civilizational innovation, and it's all interconnected. But because of that, that's why we're experiencing this acceleration. That everything, technology begets technology, innovation begets innovation. And when things are accelerating, it requires more of us to keep learning and keep growing.
I love that explanation. I recently watched your full presentation from the Aspen Ideas Institute, and you ask, you know, a question that to me I felt was very thought provoking. You were talking about all the things that the tools that we have and AI, and you ask, how can we learn to use these godlike powers wisely? And I just
Yeah.
would love for you to expand a little bit more on that because it's kind of jolting almost to hear
Yeah.
that godlike powers. Yeah. So talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
So, I get invited to a lot of big health conferences, big tech conferences to talk about the future of technology. What I tell people is that the technology and the innovation, that's only what brings us to the conversation. The real conversation is about values and wisdom and who are we to use these powers, and will we use them wisely or will we use them unwisely? And for millennia, our ancestors have imagined our gods who could do all these incredible things. They could change weather patterns. They could predict things happening in the future. They could bring non living things to life. And we are moving in the direction of being able to do all of those things. I mean, we are, after nearly 4 billion years of evolution, are one species among all of the species that have ever lived, suddenly has the increasing ability to engineer novel intelligence and re-engineer life. I mean, these are truly godlike powers by any definition of our various gods. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but the question is values. The question is, will we have the wisdom to use these powers wisely? And the good news for us is that we don't need to invent new values. We don't need to invent new wisdom. Our ancestors, for thousands of years, have been struggling with these same questions. What does it mean to live a moral and just life? What does it mean to build a community that empowers everybody? And what we need to do is to say, well, how do we bring together the best of our technology and the best of our values and build systems that allow us to flourish? And whether that's on the individual level, the corporate level, the communal level, the national level, global level, really at every level.
It feels like, and you often hear the narrative that things are changing more rapidly than they ever have before. And you just a little while ago you mentioned the agricultural revolution and the
Right.
industrial revolution. Is this moment different than what we've
Yeah,
experienced in the past?
well, it is because it's accelerating and because
Mm.
we are developing tools that increasingly have the ability to improve themselves. And I don't want to underestimate the massive implications of the agricultural revolution, the printing press, writing. I mean, these were general purpose transformative technologies. But this new era of AI is certainly in that league, but a printing press didn't create another printing press. And so we are beginning a process of what's called recursive self improvement, AI systems that can write their own code. And that doesn't mean there won't be and shouldn't be humans involved in this process. But we're all seeing year after every year the speed and quality of computer code is getting faster and better. And there's a whole lot of junk out there, and we have to worry about junk. And I'm a real humanist. I believe humans have an essential role to play in everything. But things are really accelerating. And so it makes it very important that we start to imagine what the future looks like. Nobody can be a fortune teller. For me, I mean, the word that I use is futurist, but what it really means is trying to use a disciplined thought process to look at the world today and try to imagine, well, where might that be going tomorrow? And what are the skills and understandings and relationships that we're going to need to navigate these rapids wisely?
I, I I noticed in a recent talk that you gave, you mentioned that sometimes people feel that some of these topics like AI, genetics,
Right.
biotechnology are beyond them.
Right.
Yet you say we all have to have a part in it. So
Right.
how is this different? Because it is very easy to go, wow, that's just way out there. I'm not going to listen to that. But we kind of don't have a choice, do we?
we don't have a choice. And imagine that you were a hunter gatherer 12,000 years ago, and somebody said, you see that guy in the little in that cave over there. He planted a little seed and a little crop came up, and that's going to be a really big deal for you. And you say, what, you mean that little plant? And you say, actually no, we're going to change the way that we live, the way that we interact with each other. We're going to live in these things called cities. Like, what's a city? And we're going to have writing codes, and we're going to have the International Space Station. Like, you say, like, what, this all seems crazy. But
Right.
that is this moment that we're in, where things are changing very fast. It's hard for us to get our minds around what the future may look like. But if you went back 12,000 years ago and you tried to explain your life to your ancestor then, even this conversation that we're having, it's like, hold on 1 second, you're in different cities and you can see each other, and how is this happening? It would blow your mind. And one of the reasons why I also write science fiction is because I think that in this age of radical change, we need to free our creativity. And that doesn't mean we should be totally unhinged, because the future is being built on the foundation of the present. But it means that we really need to try to open our minds to imagine different futures. And when we do that, that can help us build in the direction of the kind of worlds and futures that we'd like to inhabit.
So a lot of that is big picture. And obviously, when we
Yeah,
book speakers, we're booking them in organizations, often corporations. I know with you, I've
right,
booked you a lot for member organizations like a
right,
YPO or a NEO.
right,
So let's bring it down a little bit. That an organization today that might be thinking about hiring you as a speaker, where do you think event planners, maybe in planning content, or
right.
leaders, where are we underestimating the impact of these technological shifts and what they're going to have on business and overall the industries that we're involved in?
Yeah. I think we're overestimating them and underestimating them, in the sense that
Okay.
people always say with every one of these technological shifts, this is going to change everything. If you don't change everything, you're going to be the new Kodak, and you're going to be out of business. But
Yes.
for most businesses, you have incredible traditions, you have structures, you have people, you have history, you have relationships, customers, you have all of these things that are really incredible. And you're not going to press a magic AI button and all of those things are going to go away. And so what I think people are overestimating is, a lot of companies are feeling, well, I have to change everything right away and I have to be AI first. And I say this over and over in my talk. I give to lots and lots of talks to healthcare systems and hospital systems and medical associations, all about the future of healthcare. And I have a slide which is a robot pressing a button. And I think this slide of the magic AI button, nothing is more dangerous than thinking we're just going to have a magic AI button and then it's going to solve all of our problems. That is not what's going to happen. And so people are overestimating the need for complete transformation now, but they're underestimating the need to really think differently about how to evolve organizations over time. And I say this a lot. I mean, I'm a deep humanist. There are some people who talk about artificial general intelligence, AGI, as being this period, what they say, just around the corner, when machines can perform all cognitive tasks that humans can. I don't believe that at all. But I do believe that we're entering an era of machine superintelligence, where machines are going to be able to do a lot of really great things. And we're going to discover that humans can do a whole lot of really incredible things that machines will never be able to replicate. And so the name of the game for companies, and whether it's big tech companies and associations that I speak with, or medical and hospital associations, or ag organizations, is not how do we make way for the machines. It's how do we think about what's the right relationship between humans and machines, and how can we build companies and industries where we have machines doing what machines do best and humans doing what humans do best. And so that's why these very old fashioned functions, like just investing in people, human resources, recruitment, that's more important than ever before. Yes, you need to have to be able to manage AI systems and computer networks and all of those kinds of things. But your value added for any organization is your humans. And so if you have humans functioning as second rate machines, that's a waste of your human capital. And so, how do you think about empowering humans to be the best humans that they can be and to be the most contributive humans to your endeavor, whatever that is?
How do you do that? I'm curious.
Well, so the
It's
way,
going to
so
be
I have a whole
different for every
framework that,
scenario. Oh, yeah. Talk about that.
yes, no, no. So the way I say it is that you can't think of it as at the corporate level or even at the job level. It has to be at the task level. And so for every job that people have, you can say, well, this job, if you really break it down, let's say there's 10 essential tasks of this one job. And then
Okay.
for each one of those tasks, you can say, well, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, is this a task that's going to be more likely performed by a human, by a machine, or something in the middle? If it's a human task, that's where you really need to be investing your time and energy because, again, you want to empower your humans to be the best humans they can be. If it's a machine task, you need to be really thinking about, well, how do we make sure machines are doing tasks that machines do best? Because if you have a human doing a machine task, it's a waste of that human's capacity, and it's inefficient for your company. And if it's somewhere in the middle, you need to figure out what's the right relationship between human and technological capabilities. And then that's connected to a learning process. Yes, every organization needs vision, and oftentimes that vision can come from the top. But there's a whole lot of wisdom that comes from within every organization because no McKinsey consultant, no top-down management structure is going to be able to go through every job and try to do that analysis. So how do you do it? First, you have to educate people. You have to empower people, which is what my talks are all about: education, engagement, and empowerment. And then you have to have a structure so that people at every level of your organization are able to contribute their best. I mean, I do a lot, like I mentioned before, a lot of speaking with hospital systems. But the people,
Right.
the frontline workers, like the nurses and the admin people, they know where their pain points are. They know when they're doing a task that's really repetitive, and they know when they are doing a task which is a high human value added. And so, if you don't have a system where the humans are able to contribute their human wisdom and judgment at every level, no amount of fancy consultants or outside contractors are going to get any organization from where it is to where it needs to be.
That makes total sense to me. And I never really thought about it. Almost seems counterintuitive that you start at the task level and ask that simple question: is it a human task or is it a
Yeah,
machine task? I love
right,
that.
right.
So,
Yeah.
when we talk about that approach, what's the right spot for you in an organization that's really willing to tackle this head on? Are you a leadership speaker to help with strategy? Are you a sales kickoff speaker to help salespeople think about, aligning themselves more with the human aspect of the task and using the tools? I mean, is
Right.
there a particular part of the
Right.
organization or a particular audience where you feel like it's really lands?
Yeah. And so it's definitely, it's not just with leadership, but it's about leadership because my
Okay,
view of leadership, as I just said, is that real leadership happens everywhere in a company. And so for me,
that's right.
where I feel like I'm able to provide the greatest value add is to meet. But I do a lot of meeting with C-suite and top executives, and I do even small sessions and workshops, but also with larger groups and communities of saying, here's a story, and here's how it's going to change the world around you, and here's where you fit into that story, and here's your responsibility. Not just that AI is coming for your job, and you just have to sit back and 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 horrible things are going to happen to you, but this is a wave. It's a big wave, and you can ride the crest of this wave, whether you're the CEO of the company or you're anywhere in the organization, but you have to have a sense, not just the leadership, but you, everybody in the organization has to have a sense. Well, what is it going to mean to ride this wave? What's my responsibility? And so every organization has to be a learning organization. And so what I find is the best place for me is when the top leadership of an organization come to realize that something really big is happening. We want to move the whole organization toward embracing this, and not just embracing that, well, everybody's job is going to change and everything is going to change, but some things are going to change, and that we need to bring everybody into that conversation. And the best way to do that is to bring somebody in who can get people excited, make it very personal. When I give my talks, I always reference my own personal experiences and how I've applied these technologies and these lessons in my own lives. And what I find is that really everybody in the audience now, and it's funny, when years ago, I remember I was giving a talk to a big financial services organization. And I was said, raise your hand if you've heard about these large language models. And not a single person raised their hand. And I said, well, here's what's coming, and here's how it's going to work. And this may sound really simple to you, that it's just predicting the next letter or the next word. But I promise you, you're going to be interacting with these machines in ways that will blow your mind. And nobody believed it. And so I just think that right now there's a hunger, there's a fear, and there's a hunger. And what I try to do in my talks is to get people excited about what's coming, to recognize that people do have fears, and those fears are not unfounded. And that in order to navigate on a personal or a communal level, we're going to have to learn to do things differently. And so every business that I speak with, the people in that business know the particularities of their business better than I do. But what I try to say is, here are some principles, and here are ways that we can all come together to try to navigate through this. And I like to reference the painter George Seurat. And so maybe some people know a Seurat painting where it's made up of all these little dots. And if you look really closely, it just looks like a bunch of dots. And when you take a step back, it's a painting. And so everybody, in whatever we're doing, we are a dot and we're a painting. And as a dot, we have a responsibility to be the best dot we can possibly be, but we also have a responsibility to the painting. And if you're anyone in an organization, you are a dot in that bigger painting.
I love that analogy. I love it. If someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, I get it. I can't bury my head in the sand, but at the same time, they feel intimidated by the pace of change. Is there something they can start doing today to better prepare themselves?
Yes, I talk about this a lot. And first, I always recognize people's fears. I mean, there are real fears. Like I said before, they're not unfounded fears. This is a moment of radical change. And a lot is required of us. And so the worst thing that we can do is bury our heads in the sand. But if somebody says, well, what can I do? Well, the first thing that you can do, and we all can do, is learning. And so if you're listening to this podcast, you're already on the winning team, because you're listening to podcasts like this and not some other podcasts that are less educational. And so learning, and then what to learn, because we all know that there's the kind of what I call line of sight learning, the things that we know we need to know. But right now, there are a lot of disruptions that are coming at us from outside of our line of sight. And so how do we think about that? Because you need to know about those things as well. And what I tell people is, just in your life, something will show up that'll just be a little bit different than it's been maybe for many years. And when that happens, I referenced in the beginning of our conversation, me as a little kid, just ask why. And if you don't, and you have all these resources to learn about, well, why is this and why is this? And that series of whys, like a pontoon bridge, will lead you toward insights. So that's number one. Number two is to recognize, as I said, because most jobs will change, not entirely. I mean, some jobs will go away, some will be created, but most jobs will change. And so really think about, as you learn more, what are areas in whatever work you're doing where technology might be applied? And if you come up with something, talk with other people, talk with your managers, talk with the executives in your companies, because none of us, certainly not me, not the CEO of Microsoft or OpenAI, none of us have any of the answers. And one of the reasons why I enjoy so much meeting with these different communities, and whether it's at these big conferences or executive gatherings or really anything, is that for all of us, the way that we're going to figure this out is coming together and saying, well, here's what I know. Here's what I know. Here's some lessons that I've learned. And how can we put all of these pieces together? And because the world is so dynamic and continually changing, that is just, it's not a one time thing. It's a way of operating in the world. It's a way of thinking about how do we learn and grow together? How do we operate effectively? And how do we build the most effective organizations we can build?
I was wondering if you were with a group of, let's say, freshmen or sophomores in high school,
Yeah.
and they were worried about the future because, oh, all the jobs are going away.
Right.
What are some areas that you might encourage them to study? Because you know that that aspect of human behavior or that skill
Right.
set is going to withstand. Is there advice you would give a
Oh,
young
I
listener?
do it. Yeah, I do it all the time. And the first one is my most important message. Have a significant period of your life where you have no technology. Turn it all off. Because for some period of your life, because let's say you're using one of these AI, whether it's Chat GPT or Claude or whatever, and you're asking it a question, by and large, it's giving you the same answer, a version of the same answer as it's giving everybody else. And so if you want to have yours, I talked about the human value add. Like your
Yeah.
career is going to be based on your human value add, unless you're an elite computer programmer, but most likely it's going to be on your human value add. So you need to know your voice, your values, who you are, so you can be that person, how you relate with other people. I mean, that is really essential. And I don't worry about the next generation. I worry about the current generation because AI happens so quickly that a bunch of people thought, wait, I can just press a couple of buttons and I get a whole term paper and I can go play basketball. What a great deal.
Yeah.
And because the students were ahead of the teachers, you got a few years where you could succeed. But if you do that, you feel like you've got a skill because you're pressing those few buttons. But now everybody knows, everybody has access, and everyone can press those few buttons. So knowing who you are and what you stand for. Secondly, is really understanding a domain, whatever that is, because people may think, well, we're going to have AI. Domain knowledge will be less important. The opposite is true. Domain knowledge will be more important than ever. People who have a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge and experience, and so they know how they can interact with and how they can manage teams that will be made up of both humans and machines, like Moderna, the biotech company. They used to have a tech department and a human resources department, and now they've merged both of those into one department, which is essentially the doing stuff department. So they said, well, here's the task, and what's the relationship of people and machines in order to realize that task. And so think about, well, who are the people who are, they're going to be people who have a deep domain knowledge so that they can interact with these machines and use the kind of judgment that will be the differentiator between organizations that are just pressing buttons and organizations that are adding, as I said before, this essential human value add. And now all of that connects to human creativity. As I said before, I'm a deep humanist. I believe there are so many wonders inside of the human. We represent almost 4 billion years of embodied evolution. We aren't just a transcript of our words walking around on legs. There's so much to humans, so much complexity. And that is going to have tremendous value, not just in personal lives, but in the business world, in economics. And like I said before, we have whole new industries that we can't even imagine that will be the Googles and Amazons and Facebooks. If Gail, you and I do the same conversation 20 years ago, we will know the names of companies on the tips of our tongue And remind you. I'll say, remember we had that conversation 20 years ago. We'd never heard of that company, and we'll say, oh
Yeah.
my God, was there ever a time where we didn't know the name of whatever company?
Yeah.
And so I think we're in this period of change, and there's a whole lot that people, not just students, but everybody can do. It's funny. A friend of mine was one of the people who was booed as a graduation speaker at Florida Central University because she was talking about all of the excitement about AI. And I'm on her scientific advisory board of the Lake Nona Impact Forum. And in this world of the future of healthcare, it's so exciting that we're going to have, like my own father, my late father, we extended his life by 2 years by embracing these technologies. And
Yes.
so there's so much that's exciting, but it's not going to happen on its own. People are
Yeah.
going to drive this, and these technologies are in their infancy. And it's like it's like raising a toddler, and we all have a role to play. So coming back to your question about young people and people who are afraid, this is a period of change, and it's a period of unimaginable opportunity. And there will be downsides, and everybody has a role in managing that. And that's why the work that you do, like I said, we've been collaborating for 10 years, which isn't just between us, but it's all the many tens of thousands of people who have been brought into these communities. I mean, everybody has a role, and by coming together and sharing ideas and learning with and from each other, we can hopefully move in a very positive direction.
That's awesome. I'm so glad I asked that. Well, to our event planners that are out there looking for a speaker to help your audience deal with what Jamie refers to as unimaginable change and make sense out of these huge technological shifts, I think Jamie's the one to consider. So if you're looking for someone with a thought-provoking message, but also a super practical message, give us a call. We'd love to help get Jamie in front of your group. And thank you so much, Jamie. I mean, I could talk to you for hours. I think you do such a good job of taking all these abstract thoughts and pulling them together in actionable and smaller bite-sized pieces that we can all learn from. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Gail.
Thank you for joining us on Backstage Pass with Gail Davis. Tune in for more exclusive interviews and pro tips to elevate your events. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts with us. We'll catch you next time behind the curtain on Backstage Pass.